I'm an affiliate faculty member of the Center for Advanced Urbanism. This is a relatively new enterprise of the School of Architecture and Planning that is looking at speculation in a positive way, speculative proposals for cities around the planet. They put out a call for seed grants last year, and I'm part of a team that was awarded a grant to look at the issue of settlement patterns and climate change in the Boston region. We're looking at Boston because it's close to home, it's where we all live, and it's a place that's as vulnerable to climate change as any other city in the United States. So we sit on the eastern seaboard. We developed according to a not necessarily environmentally sensitive development model. This means we have cities built on barrier beaches, cities like Revere, Winthrop, and Hull. These are places that are going to be vulnerable not only to this 100-year storm phenomenon like Hurricane Sandy, but they're going to be vulnerable to any rise in sea level. Let's look at what we might have to think about in 30 or 50 years, past the extent of any of our professional lives, but certainly this will be part of the set of professional problems in the next generation. What would happen if, let's say, I won't name a particular city, but let's say all of the inhabitants of a particular city had to move. They're not going to die. They're not going to scatter to the four winds like happened after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. But they might have to move, and they might have to move uphill or inland to places that are 10 or 20 feet above sea level. It's very hard to think about, but it's actually a reality because there is a lot of population in Boston that's living just a couple of feet above sea level. And if you go out to Plum Island in Newburyport, you can start to see that erosion's happening right now. It's actually very active. Nantucket, the erosion is really starting to take place. So I'm working with the transportation professor, Chris Zegras, and we're looking at land use and urban design together with transportation networks in tandem to look at how we might need to reimagine those networks in the case of some drastic resettlement of population in the Boston area. And this is a project that we were just awarded this, so we'll start work this summer and probably continue into the next year. Climate change is going to raise challenges for urban design, the likes of we've never seen before. What we have in Massachusetts, and it's typical of the United States, we have a series of small municipalities, each of which controls their own political fate. I tell visiting guests from Europe, they ask, so how often do the mayors of Cambridge and Boston get together to talk about city planning? And I say, maybe the mayors of Boston and Cambridge will meet in the Whole Foods by accident, but they don't get together. There's no discussion. And here we are in Cambridge, we're looking at Boston, you can walk there. So the level of, you can call it balkanization of American towns is quite substantial. It makes thinking about solutions to this kind of problem extremely difficult. Let's look at a typical condition on the South Shore. You may have one city that's very densely inhabited, say Hull. 5 miles away you have another city, Hingham, which is really a town that maybe has 8,000 people. It's mostly open space, and that open space is strictly protected by the town as open space for the town. If you end up in a situation where you have a lot of people moving around, not necessarily refugees, but let's say displaced people, you're going to have to rethink the disposition of that space. And it may not be up to the people of a place like Hingham or Cohasset. I don't want to say any place in particular, but let's say the less densely settled towns in the Commonwealth, it may not be up to them in the end how many people have to move to where they are. If those towns are more protected, they may end up being a place for future settlement, whether they like it or not. And that's going to require a lot of reimagining of the way in which we settle people. Are these going to be, again, new neighborhoods built in, I don't know, forests? Are these going to be towns that are new housing that's built around train stations? Maybe we want to enhance the use of mass transit. It's totally open how we're going to address this problem, and no one's looked at it yet. So again, I see this as a really appropriate activity for us in the Department of Urban Studies and Planning to be very future-oriented and to look ahead of tomorrow and to look toward solutions that to problems that people are just beginning to realize exist.